right? So MIDI could sound like a piano, or it could sound like I don't know, an organ or a drum kit. You know, what do you want it to be, right? And so, just kind of give you an example. Let's find a sound out here. Okay. So, do you think it's possible to lose the off? How long will this play for? Forever, right? Why? It's the last instruction. You told me, hey, Simon says, note on. Right? What have I done? I've basically disconnected the controller from the sound computer, right? It's going to keep playing this note forever. There's actually a button on a lot of devices. It's called a panic button. This is that time. Right? And it's a message. It's called all notes off. Hey, turn every single note off, please. And it's not uncommon to get a stuck note. And so now I had to replug the cable in. So basically I'm using a cable between the controller and the sound computer just to kind of prove that idea that they are separate pieces. So making sense? Okay with that? So it totally depends on the sound computer. If it's an organ or a string sound or whatever, the envelope is what's going to determine what it sounds like. And so the note on and note off are just messages. That's just as simple as it is. Okay, so good with those? Yeah? Okay. So if I were to play a keyboard right now, like this one here, what's different about all those performances? The key I'm hitting, the position I'm hitting, right? A lot of people say, oh, I hear differences in pitch or tone or whatever. But actually what I'm changing is, on the controller, the position, what button I'm hitting. Does that make sense? There's a technical name for it. The technical name is called a note number. All right, note numbers basically define which key you're hitting on the keyboard. Making sense so far? Okay, so this gets into a digital thing. I don't want to go too deep into it, but you mentioned binary briefly, talking about that idea. You guys familiar with binary? It's a language, right? It's made out of what? Zeros and ones. They're known as bits. Basically, bits can say yes or no. They don't really give you much information. So what they needed to do is string a bunch of bits together to form a word, like any language. Maybe you've heard of 4-bit or 8-bit or 16-bit or 32-bit, or if you're into video games, you might have heard of these things too. And that basically, there's a change, a complex change that happens as it happens, as you lengthen the word. And so a 1-bit word would describe how many keys? 2. Basically, a 0 key and a 1 key. Not very much that we can describe. 2 bits would give me the possibility of 4, because I could have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. Every time I add a bit, it actually doubles, which is kind of interesting. 3 bits would be 8, 4 bits, and so forth. What's the biggest set of keys I can get here at the Easy Music? 88. It's a pretty common number, right? Big set of piano keys, right? How many bits would you need? 3 bits was 8. 4 bits would double to 16. 5 bits would double it to 32. 6 bits would be 64. It covers this keyboard, but it does not cover the piano. We need at least 88. So the minimum amount is 7 bits. 7 bits, if you take 2 and you raise it to the 7th power, which is, I know, math, 2 to the 7th is 128. So there are 128 MIDI note numbers. The numbering, because it's binary, starts at 0. It goes to 127. You go, well, that's way more than I needed. Yeah, but it's the first amount of thing that I could actually start with. I needed to have at least 88. And so if I went from 88, got into 128, now I can actually describe what's here. And what happens is the keyboard's actually right in the middle of it. The piano is, I should say. There's actually some note numbers below it and some note numbers above it that seems a little strange. If you were to get into the numbering system, they actually have like a C1, C2, like 3rd and 4th octave. You're familiar with that? So a C0 or a C-1, which is a little weird, right? And that's because of there's this leftover extra stuff, all right? They are usable, but they don't make a lot of sense for some instruments. They don't seem very true for a bassoon to play a note number 127 would be pretty ridiculous, and to have a bass guitar play a note number, have a piccolo flute play like a 0, right? It'd be like, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? Too low or too high. So, give you a reference. Not gonna make you learn the notes. I think that's a little ridiculous. So, familiar with middle C. There's an argument as to C3, C4. I don't want to get into that argument. I'm going through the, I'm Yamaha camp, okay? So that's C3. It's 60 is the note number. Hey, this is 60. So the message got a little more advanced, right? Hey, turn on number what? 60. Hey, turn off 60. Great. So what's this going to be? It's one note number up. So that'd be 61. Hey, turn on 61. Turn off 61. 59, 60, right? What happened musically? You guys are into music? It goes up musically a half step, right? 12 of these half steps. 72, right? That'd be 12 up would be what? The next octave, C4. So C3, C4. Not making you do it, but if you had to, you could find your way around from middle C, right? So basic note numbers, right? Great. So does it make sense that every keyboard does this? Well, it depends where you live. Equal temperament scale makes sense here in North America, but maybe we're in Japan, or maybe we're in China, or maybe we can do all kinds of interesting scales. And so this keyboard could be it's a computer. I could reprogram it and say, oh, I want it to do this or do that or whatever. And so all of a sudden I get into other types of tunings. Another example. What's happening there? It's like percussion, right? A drum kit. So this is 60, now 60 is like, hey, play this tom. Hi-hats, 58. And so each note number is called a drum map. You can learn the map. You're gonna love it. All this goofy stuff. If you learn the map, you can actually play a drum beat, right? And so forth. What can happen with MIDI, it's a strange thing, is you could be playing the wrong sound computer setting, right? This happen with MIDI. You get like circus music. You're like, what the? Yeah, you got the right notes and the right numbers, but you've sent them to the wrong sound computer, and all of a sudden it's being played back as weird stuff. So the note numbers basically map out where stuff is laid out. Here's another kind of fun thing you can do with it. So this is like 50, 58, and lower is a bass. Kind of rap bass, and then higher play strings, they call it a split. So up here I have, all right, so I can play different parts and so forth. It's just mapped out by note numbers. If you know the numbers, you could program it and tell it what you want to do. So, all right, questions so far? Pretty basic stuff, right? Note numbers, note on, note off. Okay, great. So, they're messages, MIDI messages. Oh, in here that I'm selecting from the sound computer, I'm selecting what? Depends on the brand. They like program change. A common name for synthesizers used to be patch change. If you guys see Close Encounters, the keyboard that brought the aliens down with and so forth. So if you look at that massive sound computer, if you will, it was patched together with patch cables. The oscillator goes into the filter, and you had to be, an engineer to like figure out, and you have the wrong patch and no sound, right? How many settings could you have? The current one, right? If you wanted something else, you'd have to unpatch or repatch another way. So when computers started to have memory, they had a common name was patch change. And program change is a more common name today. Like that effects pedal I kind of mentioned a message like that. So we'll talk about that message here in a minute. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. Just like, okay, number 1's piano, number 20 is a drum kit. And I just happen to know this keyboard, which is good. So I'm glad they had it.